welcome in. Happy Red Friday on KCMO Talk Radio. And two guys in the studio vest very differently. You got me in the red T-shirt as a radio guy on my Red Friday. And you got the great John Holt. You watch him every night on Fox 4 with his red tie. Happy Red Friday, my friend.
Yeah, I got to wear the uniform, dude. Come on. You know, it's Red Friday, and I'm an anchor man, and I gotta wear the.
You got the red pocket square.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna look sharp tonight, my man.
We tape our KC End Zone this afternoon.
Okay.
So I gotta be all dressed and ready to go for that to keep up with Collins and Kuntz, and those guys must look at each other and go, "How did they let this news dork on?"
Well,
but we've been doing it for several years. We have a blast. They're fun to work with, and I'm a sports fan. I don't know the X's and O's as well as they do, but I love sports. I come from the fans' point of view as much as anything, and kind of keep the three-ring circus moving.
Well, you keep it moving very well, and I'll tell you what. But I got to give you credit because especially since COVID, I mean, anytime I got to put on a button down, I am like but I am just want to get it off as quickly as I can. And I mean, do you sleep in that outfit, or what do you do?
Well.
No comment.
I have a special anchor outfit I sleep in. I like what you're wearing. I like the T-shirt, the World Championship.
I know.
3 times. Yeah, that's great.
Beauty of
believe
radio.
me, I'd love to dress like that, especially on a Friday.
There
is no office casual for us.
Right? I know there isn't.
Yeah.
Gee, we got to, everyone else dressed down after COVID. We got to get you guys. We got to get a petition for the anchormen and women to start dressing down a little bit more. What do you think?
Some of the stations allowed their anchors to work from home, right?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
During COVID. And I talked, Chris Ketz is a buddy of mine over at Channel 9. That's no secret. We play golf and have been friends for a long time. And he said it was hard because you don't have access to the technology. It's very fraught with peril in terms of the technology working. He didn't like it. I mean, and even though he didn't have to dress the part as much, I think he's happy to be, or was happy to be, back in the studio as soon as possible. We were fortunate. Our news director said, you know what, we need to be here. And we separated. If you remember, we were separated in the studio with double boxes, and it seemed kind of strange, but we did the social distancing thing. Thankfully, we didn't have to wear masks while we read off the teleprompter. That would have been fun. But it worked out fine. I think we had minimal problems. The reporters and photographers worked remote as much as possible. It's easier for them to work remote. We actually like to have them out in the field anyway. So we got through it, and we all survived, and here we are.
Who's got the better handicap, you or Chris Ketz?
Oh, I'd give it to him.
Really?
Yeah, he plays a little more than I do. I try to get out as much as I can, but he can hit the ball pretty good. I'll tell you, Nick Vassos on our staff is a pretty good golfer. I've played with him a time or two. There's some other on-air folks in town who are really good golfers who they wouldn't want. I'll carry their bag for them.
Well, I could do that for probably you guys as well. But I blame it on having 2 little kids at home because I'm not playing enough golf.
I didn't play much golf when my kids were young and at home either.
Yeah,
so I understand. By the way, congratulations. I understand.
Yes.
Number 3 on the way.
Number 3.
Are excited, I'm sure. They want a little boy.
They want a boy.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Well, thank you for that. We're excited. Yeah, March, I think March 9th-ish. So it'll be some March Madness.
Yes, it will.
Might be watching your KUJ Hawks as, baby's getting born.
From the delivery room.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be. Hey, Doc, do you mind if we can switch that over?
Hey, Doc, your head's in the way of the TV. I know you're trying to deliver my kid, but I can't, we got 20 seconds left here in the game.
Yeah. Push. Yes.
Yeah. Oh gosh! So it is. It's exciting. Thank you very much for that.
And by the way, and I love the new digs, and congratulations on the 95.7 Clear Channel 100,000 watt.
Yes,
that's high fidelity.
Yes, it is.
I sound better. I might even look better.
No, you always look great. I'll tell you what. But you're right. I mean, in this, I don't think we can overstate what something like this is for this radio station. I mean, media. This is a big deal for us and for this station.
Well, I'll give you an example, and I even texted you this past week. I was on my way to Atchison to speak to a class at Benedictine College, and as I was getting farther north, I had punch up the AM dial because I'm bouncing around from sports and your signal started to fade, and so yes, they're on FM. That's when I went to FM, and it was boy, it was
crystal clear,
and the fidelity is better. You know, it just sounded great. So that's and you have a bigger reach, right?
Yes.
I don't know how far west you go. I assume
This
past Topeka.
This thing goes past Topeka.
Yeah, okay.
On 95.7.
Great.
It's a beast going out west. So John Holt's here in the studio, by the way. You watch him every night on Fox 4. So I'm trying to think, what was your first year in Kansas City?
So I arrived in 94.
Okay.
At the age of 13, by the way. No, I've got to admit, it's been a while. For those who are native or have been around a while, they'll recall that WDAF, which is Fox 4, was an NBC affiliate from the beginning. Powerhouse NBC affiliate. And in fact, in the mid-90s, it was must-see TV, remember? And Fox 4 had gone to number 1 at 10 o'clock. And that was the beginning of the sort of the churn. You talk about conference realignment in sports. This was station realignment nationally. Stations were being bought and sold. The values of the sticks had gone up. We were sold to a company that News Corp had a small piece of, not much, but enough that our affiliation was forced to switch to Fox. And by ours, I was in Wichita at the NBC affiliate at the time, and it provided an opportunity that might not otherwise have been there for my wife and I and our young family to get to Kansas City. They needed to hire 50 or 60 people quickly because the GM at the time decided, well, there's no programming. Fox does 2 hours at night. There was no Fox Sports. There was no Fox News Channel. This is in the infancy of Fox. Let's do news. Let's do a 4-hour morning show. Let's do an hour at 9 o'clock. Let's do an hour at 5 o'clock. We don't have a national newscast anymore. So they hired 50, 60 people, and I snuck in the back door, and I've been there ever since.
Wow.
It was a real blessing for us. I think it was frustrating for a lot of the old-timers at 4 because the NBC was in its glory days, and they were kicking it. But for those of us who were new, and many of the people I worked with back then have moved on. There's been some churn, obviously, in our business, as you know. But for me, couldn't have landed in a better place for our family. I went to KU, as you know. I make no secret of that. I worked in Topeka, Wichita. I always had my eye on the Kansas City market. I had already knocked on doors here. I had met the news director at the time. And when I arrived, I was in town for the Big 8 basketball tournament that we did with some guys. He said, well, stop by and I'll shake your hand, but we're busy right now. I walked in the door. This is a true story. Walked in the door thinking I'm going to hand him a 3/4-inch videotape back in the day. Yeah. Shake his hand and say, thank you, Mr. McDonald. Let's stay in touch. I'd love to be a part of what's going to happen here. He said, do you have time to stick around? And I said, well, yeah. I said, why? And he said, well, they've accelerated the timeline. They've moved up when the switch is going to occur, and we're having to expedite hiring. So I spent 2 hours there. It became a formal interview. I met the assistant news director, special projects. The only person I didn't meet was the general manager. I had to drive back up a week later to meet him, and ultimately got hired.
So you think you're handing off a tape, running down to Kemper to go watch a game, and then you're really sitting there. You're like, hey, I'm supposed to be drinking beer, watching KU right now.
To have a couple of cold beverages with my buddies, thankfully it was in the morning. So I think we were meeting for lunch, and I had to beg off of that because obviously I was not going to pass the opportunity to hang out for a while. And for me, being at KU and then working in Topeka, I had watched Phil Witt, Frank Bowl, Al Wallace, Mike Thompson, that whole crew for years. They were, I looked up to them. To have the opportunity to work in the same newsroom with them was going to be very exciting for me. And it proved to be when we got fortunate enough. I remember getting the call from Mike McDonald, the news director. He said, I don't know what we're going to do with you yet, but here's the offer. And so he thought either weekend mornings, weekday mornings, weekend nights. Turned out I started weekend mornings, 3-day-a-week reporting. And then the O.J. Simpson trial hit, and that's a whole other story. We carried that live, and that proved to be a break for me because I had legal background and co-anchored that and analyzed that with a number of people in town, lawyers in town. We carried that thing because we had no other programming, basically. And it got better ratings than anything we had on.
I was going to say, I bet it did well in the ratings anyway.
It did. Obviously, the only two other outlets carrying it were CNN and Court TV. And if you didn't have cable or you didn't like them,
you were the only place.
We were the place to see it, and we had some great young attorneys come on at the time to be analysts with us. You might know a guy. He went on to be a pretty good attorney, and then got into elected politics. Sly James
Really?
was one of our very.
Was he really?
Yes, he was very. He had opened his practice.
Was he bow tying back then? Did
yes, I believe he was.
He was bow tying back then. How about that?
So I met Sly early on in his career and followed him, obviously, and there were some others who, retired judges. It was really a great way for me to sort of connect with and network with the local legal community, and so that worked out great.
That's fantastic. John Holt, you watch him every night on Fox 4. He is here in the studios at KCMO Talk Radio, now on FM at 95.7. I want to ask you, John, about this Royals deal. How does covering this compare to, say, 2006, when there was all the talk about upgrading the stadiums, potential rolling roof?
Yeah.
How would you compare 17 years ago to what we're seeing right now at the Royals?
You're taxing my memory banks, but I really think back then it was more of a what if, a vision, a dream. It's very real now. It's going to happen, right? And I think we're far enough along in the process. The devil is in the details now. It's the politics. It's the money. Baseball to a certain extent has changed since back then in terms of the finances.
Yes.
And the ownership. You have a new owner now. But this one has legs, and we've spent way more time.
More time now.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And Jonathan Ketz, he's
done great.
He's done great with the story. Broken several angles of it. He broke the Clay County interest. Was on that very early, and I just think, where will it land? Who knows? It's anybody's guess. I lean toward downtown. I do think that's really where the team wants to be, the ownership group, the investors. But Clay County's very much in the mix, and if Jackson County and the city and the state drop the ball on downtown, could very well be in the Northland.
Now, I think the interesting backdrop here, too, is what's going on with the assessments in Jackson County.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got these taxpayers getting hosed, and now potentially Jackson County is going to do direct payments on top of this to the Royals. That just sounds like a political nightmare for the entire county.
There's so many angles to this story. You have the Jackson County executive, who's a former Royal, who didn't exactly leave the franchise on the best of terms, right? Love Frank White. Loved him as a player, and he's a really nice man. But what's his role in this?
Yeah.
We don't fully know, perhaps. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is, what do the Chiefs want? Because they're tied in the leases, in the current lease, to the Royals.
Yeah.
It's a favored nation clause. We get what they get, so on and so forth. The negotiation process will be the key, obviously, and I'm sure a lot of that's going on right now that we don't know about. But what do the Chiefs want? What is their plan? Donovan has suggested, the president of the Chiefs has suggested that they maybe want to stay with Arrowhead. I always thought, my theory was, especially after having covered the Super Bowl in Glendale last year, a dome where you could host a Super Bowl, which Lamar Hunt wanted, Final Fours.
Yeah.
You could get this city at
Imagine
one time.
KU in a Final Four in Kansas City.
Goodness. Well, they were in 88 at the Kemper Arena, right?
Yeah.
This city at one time had hosted the most Final Fours. I think Indy has now surpassed it. I may be wrong about that. But back in the day, Municipal Auditorium and then Kemper. Well, now it's dome stadiums. The NCAA is not going to move away from
Which
that.
I hate, but I get it.
It's awful. Even in the lower level, the sightlines are awful.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah.
I sat with some friends in New Orleans. I had a credential, but I had a chance to sit with a friend in his lower level seats, and you were still a mile from the action.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they want to
keep Arrowhead.
I think Clark respects his late father.
Yes.
That was his building, his legacy, and I think they may want to do something to try to keep it there. Could you put a roof over that? I don't know. That's an architect and engineer's problem, and way over my. I'm in the business I'm in because I'm a writer. I know nothing about physics or math. It's funny, you get recognized on the street, but people aren't sure that. Are you the weather guy?
Oh, is that what they say?
That's great. I'll kind of smile and say, I'm not smart enough to be the weather guy, but I sit next to him every night.
Oh God, that's great. Yeah. So you'll just be sitting there and they'll say,
I know you. I see you. You're on TV, right? Yeah. Thanks for watching. Weather guy. Or what's the weather going to be like? And honestly, when the weather guy's talking, I'm on my computer updating stories or,
what's the weather going to be like? I don't know. Let me pull out my phone. I'll tell you what it's going to be tomorrow.
Let me pull up my Fox 4 app.
That's great.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll see. A lot of balls in the air. Can they get it on the ballot by April?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. That's a quick turn.
Yeah, I know they'd love to have it on because the Royals will be 0-0 and everybody's excited about baseball.
Yes.
But the polling also shows the Royals need to be with the Chiefs
right now. Yep. That is very true.
And even they admit that.
It is going to be so fun to watch. Yeah. On the sports front, real quick, you mentioned you're a KU guy. How fired up are you about this? Forget the basketball being preseason number one. How about the football right now? I know tough loss last week.
Yeah,
but
it was. My friends will tell you, I've been going to KU football games from the beginning. I love football Saturdays on a college campus. There's nothing like it.
Yep.
And I've been through the highs and lows. I was there in 2007 when Mark Mangino marched them toward their one and only BCS Bowl, the Orange Bowl. That was the same year. They won that in 2008, early January. Same year KU won the national title in San Antonio, and I was fortunate enough to be there to cover that. Yeah, I love football, and I'm excited about this new coach. It's a program. You build a program, and I think KU went for the Hail Marys with some coaches, with Weiss and
Miles. Oh, gosh.
I understood at the time why, but now looking back, probably not the best way to build a program. Now you build a program like K-State did. KU people have great respect for Bill Snyder, great respect for what he did over there. We have K-State friends. I don't cheer against K-State unless they're playing KU. I like to see the Kansas schools do well. And so it's been fun to have a program on the rise. Let's hope they can sustain it because now KU's building a new stadium and a district. It parallels, doesn't it? They're not just building a stadium. They're going to turn it into a district, a gateway to the campus to make it work. And so you got to raise money. And when you win, it's easier to raise money. I think they'll tell you that.
I think so, too. And I think we could be headed for a golden era of Kansas college football between these two programs and those two head coaches if they hang around.
I remember back in the day when KU and K-State were futility U, and one year they played to a tie, and everybody laughed and said, well, that's appropriate. They were consistently bottom of the heap. Now, one has been at the top, and the other is trying to get back there. And I think the game in Lawrence coming up in November will be hopefully competitive. We thought it would be last year, and it wasn't. Big question mark for KU is Jalen Daniels, starting quarterback. What's the back injury? Lance Leipold says he's not been told he's done for the season. Bye week this weekend. Maybe he's healthy. For Oklahoma, gulp.
Yes.
A pretty good
next
Oklahoma
Saturday
team. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
It's gonna be fun. I hope he's back for that. I got about a minute here. I've been dying to ask you this though, and I'm sure people are wondering. You said so. 29 years you've been here now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just shake my. It's gone by so fast, right?
Do you have another 29 in you?
Yeah. I will say this, and you and I've talked about this. I love what I do. I don't see myself doing anything else. If you guys have any openings, let me know. But I think
John's starting to sweat in there.
No, he's great. I think as long as I enjoy what I'm doing and still love telling stories and being a part of the action, I'm going to keep doing it. Now, there's a point at which you can't stay too long. You don't want to overstay your welcome, right? So there'll come a point where I'll know it's time. I hope I know it's time. You hope you're settled with that and comfortable with it. I have colleagues who I worked with for years who now retired, and they tell me it's fantastic. Phil Witt and I've talked. He loves what he's doing. He's got grandkids, and he spends a lot of time with them, and others who travel and do those kinds of things. I hope I'm ready. I hope I know it's time, and they're looking back and going, gee, I wish I hadn't done that. But right now, full steam ahead.
Full steam ahead.
Having fun.
All right, I love it. John Holt, Fox 4, you watch him every single night.
Hope so.
I hope so. Hey, listen, this audience is, because you shoot it straight, too. I mean, I've got different nicknames for different news outlets in town, as you may know. But you guys shoot it right down the middle, and that's what we need out of our news.
You know what? We need balanced reporting.
Yes.
No agendas.
No agendas.
We're not Fox News, right? We're not CNN. Right down the middle. Both sides, all sides, and let the viewer decide.
Leave the agendas to dopes like me. Hey, thank you for coming in, John. We appreciate you,
Pete, great to see you, and congrats again.
Thank you. John Holt, Fox 4.